Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life. I'm your host, Jennings Smith. Guys, today I've got a guest in the studio, Joey Muré of Wealth Without Wall Street. So this is a guy that wants to help you achieve financial freedom. He wants to help you do that through passive income. He's got some really interesting takes on retirement and the myth of that. Are we working towards the wrong thing? He offers coaching and training on how do people create their own passive income operating system. How do they design that so that they can get their time freedom back and work on the things that they're passionate about, whether it be building more projects, volunteering, doing more charity work, more involvement in their church, but having that freedom to live the life that they want to live versus just being a slave to the grind and having to actively earn those dollars to cover monthly expenses. So Joey, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you being here.
Bro, I cannot tell you how excited I am when I saw the name of this podcast, Unlock Your Life. Like, that is like, we're two peas in a pod, bro. I'm excited about it.
Well, great. So, yeah, give me a little bit of backstory. I know you're based out of Birmingham, Alabama. What are you guys working on? How are you helping people achieve this stuff?
Well, I'll tell you, my just the really quick backdrop is I was in the mortgage business for 11 years. And during that time, the Lord blessed me with massive increase in income. You know, I was making more money in my late 20s than I ever anticipated I would be able to make. But I was caught in the corporate grind. I was caught in this, man, never ending hamster wheel of having to close the next deal, having to make that next phone call, having to get the next pre approval, whatever it may be. And I started to recognize it when, I don't know if I told you this, I have 5 daughters, Jennings.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I was sitting there at the beach one time, and this happened multiple times, but just one time in particular I can remember. We're at the beach, and I tell my wife and kids, "Hey, you guys go on down to the beach. I'll be right there. I'll just be right behind you. I just have to make one more quick phone call." And what happened? 4 hours later, I'm walking down that boardwalk behind the beach house, and they're walking up the same boardwalk, going the opposite way. And their face says everything. They're disappointed. Like, they're with me. I'm physically in the same location, but I am mentally like miles away. And the reason was because I was caught in the rat race. I could not stop because as soon as I stopped, I was the only thing at work. My wife didn't work. I was the only thing at work. In other words, the challenge was my money was not at work.
Mm.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was like, something's got to change. Like, this isn't freedom. Higher income doesn't equal freedom. So what does? And that sent me on a journey. In 2009, I got introduced to a book that just changed the whole way that I see finances, the whole way I see retirement, and taking control of all those things. And man, that turned into what is now Wealth Without Wall Street. Looking back at the guy who was overworked, not free, and caught up in the rat race.
Yeah, I can relate. I'm sure a lot of people out there listening can relate to that. That was the watershed moment I had in my construction company. It's like I wasn't even making great money. I was making $150,000 maybe. And, I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. If we ever got to go on vacation, it was inundated with calls and subcontractors and employees. And I wasn't able to really save much because the income wasn't there. And so I just didn't see an end to that. And then on the flip side, going into commercial real estate, I remember in 22 and 23, I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life. I mean, I couldn't believe the money I was making, but I'm looking at my expenses, and a lot of this income was actively earned. I was still like flipping stuff or selling stuff or whatever. And I'm looking at the money going out, and it became almost crippling. It's like, wow, I have this great lifestyle now, but if I don't make X amount per month, like holy cow, that's what it takes to like operate my family now. And I had built this almost new prison. And I was like, things have got to change. Where I'm focused more on the long term cash flow plays. I'm not allowing lifestyle creep to choke out any additional wealth I've created. Because I mean, I think of a dollar as it's like this little soldier, you know, and you can go spend the little soldier going to Disney World or going out to eat or whatever. And I mean, that's part of life and that's important. But you need to be putting some of those soldiers into service, fighting for you and earning more money. And every dollar you do is going to buy you more time and more freedom to just not have that kind of stress on you, of I've got to continue to perform and I've got to make 500,000, a million, $2 million a year just to sustain. And we're maybe talking out of people's realm of reality here, but it's real. It's like it's never enough. If you just have this lump sum, it doesn't really bring the peace that you think it's going to.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I started to question a lot of things. One of those being, I mean, be honest, I never really liked putting money into a 401k, but at the time, I was just following the script everybody else told me was the right way. Like, hey, go to school, do well, get a good job, make good money, and start putting money away for retirement. And always would put that money there thinking, I really don't understand what this money is going to do. Like, who is it? Where is it going? Who's managing it? What's it actually returning? Is it actually returning more than I think or less than I think? And I can't control it. I can't influence it in any way. It's just like this blind, leading the blind kind of moment. And this book in 2009 that I read challenged my whole way of thinking. And it told me that ultimately, if I want to be free, I have to actually take control of the finances. I can't abdicate that
Hmm,
to Wall Street, to somebody else. Like, nobody else cares about your money like you do. It's
that's the
similar
truth.
to like your kids. You can't, like, nobody cares about your kids the way you do. You're not going to just hand over your kid to somebody else and say, man, this parenting thing is hard. I don't really know how to be a good parent. So I'm just going to give him up to somebody else. No, it would never do that. You're like, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to read books. I'm going to do whatever it takes to become the parent I need to be. And I think we have to have the same mindset with our own money. And so I started to read this, I started to implement the things from this book, and all of a sudden I started to see opportunities. I was like, "Oh, well there's deals all around me all the time." But before, when I was putting money in my 401ks and IRAs and equity in my house and paying off debts all the time, those things were not putting me in the position to be an investor. They were putting money away from me. Like, they were going out the door and out of my control instead of putting it into my control. And then those dollars started to beg the question, what are you going to do with me? What do you want me to go do? Right? I need to get invested into something. What's it going to be? And that shifted my whole thing into saying, there's a formula. If I can produce more passive income than monthly expenses, I can then pull up my phone, and I'll just, if you're watching this live here, I'll pull it up here. I got my calendar out. I get to put the color coded boxes on my calendar now, right? If my passive income exceeds my monthly expenses, I don't pull up those and say, oh crap, all these things are things I have to go do. Someone else put those on my calendar. Like,
Hmm.
I'm beholden to someone else's schedule for my life. I get to choose who's on there, what we're doing, and where we're doing it, but not until my passive income exceeds my monthly expenses. And so I had to start becoming an investor after I put money into my own control. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I mean, I was never big on investing in the stock market. I will say, though, flip side of someone that wasn't in your position, as I've gotten into I'm 42 years old now, and I look at my balance sheet, my financial statements, etc., and most of my worth though is tied up in illiquid assets, right? Real estate, private loans, that sort of thing, mortgages. And it does make me nervous that I don't have as much liquidity. I'm a little jealous of the guy that's got, $2, $3, $4 million in stocks that if he needed it, he could liquidate and pull out $1 million. I can't do that. And so I will say sometimes on the other side of the fence, I am a little jealous of the people that have the large stock portfolios. And so, to do that or to balance that, I've been putting some more cash into a debt fund that is liquid, that I can pull out within, a month or so. I can pull some cash out if I need to. But yeah, I do see that because it's like, man, I know with my ingenuity, I can generate 10, 15, 18, 20%. I can generate more than that using other people's money. And like, why would I settle for 8, 9, 10%? And that's average annual returns. That's not actual returns. Like when you run the math on with the market swings and the fees and et cetera, I ran this model in Chat GPT and it was like an average 10% return versus a fixed 10% return. I mean, it was almost double like what the actual return was in the market. It was like 6%, 7%. It was crazy lower than what people think they're actually making.
No, if you weren't going to say it, I was. So thank you for taking that one on the chin for us. But Wall Street is great at marketing, by the way. I mean, they're the best because they have convinced us that it's to our benefit to give them our money to manage because we're not smart enough and we don't need it anytime soon. And we need to put it off until we're 65 or 70. And guess what? Do they wait until they're 65 or 70 to start getting fees from us for managing that money? No, they get percentages of that today. Why? Because cash flow today is what pays the bills. That cash flow today is what provides the ability for lifestyle. But they've convinced us to just stack up this pile of cash into eternity practically and hope that there's enough left when we quote unquote retire. The whole mindset has to shift to what produces cash flow today. And to your point, the average in the market doesn't, I mean, you have to start in considering what sort of taxes are behind that. Are they, if it's a 401k, we think that we're getting the benefit of not having to pay taxes on it today, but at what cost? The cost is we're actually deferring those taxes and the tax calculation. Okay, so like let's say today you're in a 30% tax bracket. Well, when you retire, what tax bracket are you going to be in?
Maybe higher.
I have no idea. Neither does anybody else, right? And the chances is the IRS, is the government going to spend less money in the future or more?
More.
It's proven to always increase. Like inflation is no joke, and it's going to continue to increase. They're not like cutting programs all the time. They're actually increasing that kind of stuff. So our tax calculation is going to go up over time. And so it's like, I mean, I'm just going to use a really bad example here, but an analogy. So Jennings, we're sitting there, you're about to buy a house, and I'm your mortgage broker. We're sitting at the closing table. And I go ahead and pass you on the mortgage and the note for your closing. You're going down the note and it says, hey, it's $1 million you're borrowing from XYZ Bank on this date. And the interest rate is, and you look down there, it says percentage TBD. Like to be determined.
Okay.
And I say, Jennings, here, just go ahead and sign this, man. We're going to take care of letting you know what the interest rate is later. What's the chances that you're going to sign that document?
For me, 0.
0%. In fact, there's not one person I've asked this question to that they're like, yeah, I'm signing that. They're like, heck no, I'm not signing that. Why? Because you don't know the liability that you're tying yourself to, right? You're requiring yourself to be like surprised later. That's what is happening in our qualified plans. We're literally saying, hey, don't tell me what you're going to charge me for taxes. I'll just take that from you. You just tell me that later.
Hmm.
Like, that is the worst idea we could ever imagine. But we're doing it voluntarily every single day. Our employers, when we go to work, they're literally signing us up without us even knowing it practically. It's like automated. And these are things that we got to get out of the the process of doing, because they're putting money into other people's hands and they're locking them up for 30, 40, 50 years. Instead of, man, I want to start using my cash flow today to create passive income. And that's really what this is about.
Yeah, I read a book a couple years back that changed my perspective. Die with Zero, and it talked about how most people, they work a whole lot longer in maybe a career that they don't want to do. They save far more than they really need, and this isn't obviously everybody, but a lot of people. Um, and they don't enjoy the experiences with their children. They don't help their children, pay for their college, help them buy their first house because they're afraid that, I'm not going to have enough, right? Because they don't have income. They
Right.
have, well, I've got this $2 million or 1 million or 5 million or whatever, and I got to draw down on that. And if I live too long, then I'm going to be penniless and destitute. And the statistics show, people actually spend far less in retirement. Their expenses are going down, and barring the crazy medical expenses in the last 6 months of life, it's not uh, there's just it's not a good plan. Versus if you have 100,000, 200,000, $500,000 of income steadily coming in, that's going to give you a lot more peace than I have this nest egg that I'm going to have to chip away at, and hopefully it just doesn't run out.
100%. And not to mention, in order for somebody to get a massive nest egg, they're typically having to live pretty scarce. To your point, you're talking about fear. I call it like scarcity. They're having to just put as much away as they can to live on as little as much as they can. So it means they're not really, using their money for their lifestyle and for impact today. They're just kind of deferring it. And then, but they think, and this is the lie of retirement, well, man, once I'm retired, I'm going to be able to start living, right? So I'm in my 60, I'm 65, I'm 70. I'm going to start living and I'm going to start being abundant and going and traveling all over the world and doing all these things. And what happens? I mean, a large percentage of those people don't have their health anymore. They literally have deteriorated health wise. They're not getting on a plane to go to Europe if they want to. I mean, if they do, they're in like some sort of like motorized car or something. Like, there's all sorts of limitations at that age that, unless you've taken really, really good care of your health, you don't have your health at the same level you do in your 20s, 30s, 40s, right? And I'm just telling you, like, you don't automatically just start spending a bunch of money on things you've never spent money on because you're retired. If anything, you start to question it even more. Well,
Yeah, the
crap, I don't want to run out of money, so I gotta hold back.
the utility of money decreases every year you get older, right? It's like, yeah, exactly. You think about going to finally see, Paris or whatever, and you're like, you know what? I'd rather just sit on the couch and watch The Price is Right because I'm tired and I'm old. It's like I don't want to. I don't have the desire to do that. And I'll say, even at 42, I don't have the energy and drive that I did when I was 35, even 7 years prior. I mean, I still have a lot, but I can see that when I'm 65. I mean, I talked to my dad, who's 72, and he's always been a go getter. And we're working on this big development project, and he's like, I don't really want to mess with it. Like, if you want to take the lead on it and you want to track everything down and you want, like, I'll do it with you, but I'm not. I want to go to the mountains. I want to go. I want to go to the beach. I don't want to be sitting in meetings with developers and budgets and all that stuff. And it's like he's already to the point where he's like, I'm good. I don't need any more money. And if you want to pursue this, that's fine.
Right, right. And I'll tell you what's interesting about your show. I'm assuming, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, There's lots of people who are in the real estate world. They already somewhat know what they're investing in, right? Whether it's commercial real estate, development projects, fix and flips, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, whatever the case is, whatever your vehicle is, that's awesome. But what I recognize and what I think a lot of investors have not done is a true like look back at their system that they're using to get to those vehicles. So what I'm saying is like we coined the term the passive income operating system for a reason. What we found when we reviewed, I mean, we're talking thousands of people's financials. They would tell us with their mouth, man, I want financial freedom. I want my passive income to exceed my monthly expenses. But then we say, okay, well, what are you doing with money right now? And they're putting money into things that are actually keeping them from financial freedom. For
Hmm.
instance, like we'd already talked about 401ks. We're like, well, 401k, is that increasing your passive income or decreasing your monthly expenses? They're like, neither. Okay, so you're telling me when you put dollars into 401k, it's actually it's keeping you further from financial freedom, not helping you get there. They're like, whoa, 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 no, 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 it's not because I'm getting a match or because it's actually got a good ROI lately, or I'm actually deferring the tax. I'm like, I didn't ask you that. Those things are irrelevant in the formula passive income greater than monthly expenses. So when I put a dollar in my 401k, is it getting me closer to or further from financial freedom? And they say, I guess it's getting me further from. Okay, so what do we need to do? We got to stop putting money into that. That's called a money trap. We call 401ks a money trap. We call equity in your house a money trap. People are like, wait a minute. Dave Ramsey told me I should do a 15-year mortgage. I should pay it off as fast as I can, all this sort of stuff. And I say, how much of those dollars can you access today if you lost your job? Or if your income in your business went down? Zero. Okay, so is it helping you increase your passive income? No. Is it reducing a monthly expense? Well, once it's paid off, it'll reduce your monthly expense. But in the meantime, the 15 years that it takes you to get there or whatever, however long, it's not helping you get closer to financial freedom. In fact, it's actually keeping you further from. And there's many more of these money traps, but we determine when people really come face to face with what's my goal and what am I doing with money, they're very rarely aligned. And it's because they don't have a system to help them determine, man, when I get paid, where does the money flow to? How do I pay my expenses? And then how do I get money out of the rat race and into a position to do more of what I know creates passive income? That's why I love talking to people like you. You know what to do with money. You know how to produce passive income in these commercial real estate deals, in these value add, multifamily deals or self storage deals, whatever. You know how to do that, but many times our dollars are not supporting it at the highest level or optimized value. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and I've wrestled with that, paying off my house. I've wrestled with it. And I don't know if I totally agree that you shouldn't pay it off. I mean, I think it could create some headspace there that I just don't know what that feels like. But at the same time, it's like, well, you could, if I took $500,000 and put it into my debt fund, making 10-12% off of that, I could easily pay my mortgage forever and make more money and let it compound. It's like, I know the math supports your argument for sure.
Well, I'm not trying to tell you that your baby's ugly, Jennings, on here. I'm just saying most people now, and here's the thing, you made a good clarification. Paying off your mortgage versus paying down your mortgage. That's the thing that I'm telling you. I think most people are saying if you have a paid off house, did it reduce your monthly expense? Yeah, it did. So it actually could get you closer to financial freedom using that formula. But most people will never pay it off completely. They're just in this process of paying it down, and they're trying to do it aggressively. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, they end up selling and buying something else and starting over again.
And
And
that's
that process, they have equity, but have they got cash flow? Have they got
right.
passive income at any stage? No, they haven't. And so they're looking and they're like, this isn't freedom, right? Does that make sense?
It does. And I was talking to a guy just the other day who had some apartments they were paid for, like his dad had bought them, and he had them, and it was like generating maybe $112,000 in passive income, where he's having to manage this whole thing, pay the tax, insurance, keep them full, etc. And if he liquidated it, he could walk away with $4 to $5 million, right? So his return
Mm-hmm.
on equity is atrocious. I mean, it's terrible. Like, yes, he's
Right.
getting appreciation. Yes, he's getting some tax benefits, but like, if he sold that for five and he paid taxes and walked away with three and a half, four, I mean, he could double or triple his passive income, overnight, and it could be truly passive, where it's like he doesn't have to deal with the vacancies and the mortgage and or the taxes, insurance, and everything else. And so, real estate, my dad taught me this with rentals. He's like, it's a really good vehicle to get there. He's like, once you get a ton of equity in them and they're paid for or paid off, it really isn't a great model anymore. It's like you should refinance it and go buy 10 more, or you should sell it, put it into something that's, truly passive, but don't have a ton of like paid for properties, because your return on equity, it just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And I mean, I've seen that.
That's a great point. And I think that there's something to be said about seasons of our investing career, right? So what you're talking about there is like, man, there's a season where it's really efficient and I'm getting cash flow from this vehicle. And then the next season, when I have all this equity, it's like, I need to kind of trade this in for a more efficient vehicle. This isn't getting me the best returns, the best ability to maximize and optimize. So yeah, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater at any point, but I definitely think most people aren't thinking about it at all. And and so that's really what we bring people into, is alignment with that, and recognizing that their dollars need to be just like those soldiers that you talked about. They need to be out there working hard, man. We we can't be the ones working that hard for our dollars. That they have to be out there working on our behalf. And so one of the key components, I don't know if you've talked about this on your show or if you've personally been involved, but I learned about the infinite banking concept back in 2009 is when I learned about it. And that to me has been a difference maker. It's like the hinge in the middle of my system that has helped me take $1 and get it doing two jobs at all times. And so we went from having some cash saved to producing over 50,000 a month in passive income. Like that's our journey, is we talk about getting that dry powder, getting it put into a place like infinite banking would do, and then becoming an investor. And slowly but surely, we've documented since 2020, Russ and I went from $2,500 in passive income of June of 2020 to today we're over 50,000 a month in passive income. And it's all because we have a system that's informing it and helping us to maximize and optimize it to create as much cash flow as possible every single month.
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're not familiar, I mean, and I'm not super familiar with it, but I believe it's basically a whole life policy. You put cash in and you can borrow against that cash to invest in other assets, while the policy is also earning a small return. Is that essentially it?
Yeah, what you're ultimately doing is creating a system, and many people have multiple policies. I have over 20 myself. Russ and I have insured ourselves, our kids, our wives, each other, our investment partners, people that have done like that we're in syndications or in partnerships with. They're insured as a part of the deal. And what that just becomes is just a large line of credit, if you think about it, that we do all of our investing out of. And then when those dollars come back, we replenish those dollars back against our policy's cash value. And we just do it over and over and over again. And what we're really taking advantage of, Jennings, is instead of a savings account, which is what most people would invest out of, or a brokerage account or any of those type of things, we're actually getting the ability for our money to never stop growing. So it constantly is growing, even as we're out doing deals with it, because we're borrowing that money from the insurance company, not from our actual system itself. It's never missed a beat, and we just continue to roll those dollars out into the marketplace and back, and it continues to just create this perpetual system.
Gotcha. Now, what happens though if that investment that you borrowed against, what if it goes bad?
It's a great question, and I actually have plenty of those arrows in my back, and lessons learned, if you will. So you do have a loan against your system, against your cash value and your policy. That's the collateral, right? Your death benefit is ultimately the collateral that the insurance company is using. And so, if I don't ever pay that loan back, it will continue to grow against it with interest, and it will actually reduce the death benefit that my heirs would get. How it's worked for me in those processes where I have made, unfortunately, I got involved in a Ponzi scheme unknowingly, did not realize it was so. And it actually paid out for like almost 3 years before it went bad. And man, that stinks. Nobody wants to be in that position. But what it does is created a loan balance against my system. And so it's now a place where I'm going to continue to repay it over time with either additional passive incomes from other things or from exits. If we have a sale of a piece of property, we have a sale of a business, um, reduce our home and we sell it and we have equity, we have a place for that money to go, and it just replenishes it over time. But it's not a structured loan in the sense of like,
They're not going to call
it's
it
not the
on you.
same as, yeah, they don't actually require monthly payments or quarterly payments. They just have an annual interest that they accrue against the loan balance. And so you're able to pay it as you can. And so it's really one of the most flexible loans that exist because they have their collateral in full as your death benefit.
Right. So if you don't ever pay it off when you die, they'll get it from your insurance payout of your death benefit. Okay. So pretty
Correct.
favorable
Yeah.
loan terms.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
you've seen a million different deals probably with real estate. There's not one deal like it, in my opinion, that exists because of the flexibility of the terms.
Gotcha. And I mean, you are essentially borrowing your own cash, right? Because you have to put cash into the policy to be able to pull a loan out, correct? So,
Yeah, exactly. You're limited to, you can't over leverage it, in other words, for
right,
sure.
right. Okay, so why don't you kind of talk about who you help, how you help them, and who is a good fit for what you're doing?
Yeah. I think, man, if you're anything like I was, overworked, doing a lot of the right things with money, doing the good things with money, but not really feeling like you're getting ahead, you're not getting more of your time back, you're not unlocking your life. I love the name of your podcast. Um, then you need a different path. You need a different process. And sometimes it takes a third party, like an objective third party, look at your stuff and say, hey, so Jennings, I see that you're doing this with money. How is this helping to support what you really want? And I'll just be honest with you, a lot of advisors out there are not doing that. Like they're just happy with what you're giving them in terms of the brokerage account or, managing your 401k, and that's about it. But this is more of a process where you engage with a coach, you walk through that with them, and you build out your system so that you can see progress. And then the second part of that is if you're somebody who has really struggled with knowing where to start with investing, like you're like, hey, I love the idea of passive income, but it scares me because I don't really know what to invest in. I don't know like what my buy box is. I don't know how to read a pitch deck. I don't know what's the term of PPM. I don't even know what that means. We actually have a coaching program that's a 12-week course we walk people through that will help you figure out what's your investor DNA, right? What's your profile as it relates to investing? Because guess what? You hear Jennings talk about his success on the show. You've heard me talk about building a bunch of passive income, but I really love raw land investing and flipping raw land for note income. And guess what? You may run out there and be like, yeah, Joey has all this success. It's creating over $23,000 a month in passive income for him. But it may be the worst thing that you could do because I'm a different type of investor than you. I have a different background than you. I have a different personality and experience level than you. And Jennings the same way. Like you've done things in your life that other investors haven't ever experienced. You've been in the construction world. Guess what? That's a real advantage for you. But some people that haven't, that puts them at a disadvantage in some of the things that you probably invest in. And so, anyways, we have the passive income lab. We walk people through all these things. And the end result is you get your very first $500 a month in passive income, or we keep working with you no matter what. And so those are our things we're calling people into is, man, build your system and become an investor. If you can do those two steps, you can start stacking that and get to financial freedom as fast as possible. Because that's what we're about, man. We want to free up people to unlock whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing in this life. And that's to have the impact that God intended you to have and not feel locked in to whatever you're just putting up with today. That's
So,
the ideal.
so would you say you focus more on active passive income? Because I think about like land flipping. It's like, okay, you go out there and you find a piece of land, you buy it, maybe you subdivide it off and you sell it owner finance, and you have these notes and people pay, and it's great. But when you really drill into like, okay, how are you going to find these properties? How are you going to get the cash to buy them? How are you going to market them? What does the note look like? What's the collateral? What happens when people don't pay? Oh, you know what? I probably need to have like a loan servicing third party to do that. And I'm going to have to file a tax return on this
Mm-hmm.
new entity that I've created. And it's passive income in that you didn't go out there and work 40 hours to make the money, but it's not like investing in a 401k, where you just send them in
Right.
$2,000. So, and some people are willing to do that.
Yeah.
The ones that are going to make the most money, right? But if you want to be more passive, you better have a lot of cash, is how I have seen it.
Yeah. Well, great question. And, we actually dive into this on our podcast every month. We do our own personal passive income report and we explain each of like, I think there's 16 different streams that we've created over the years. But the way in which we do the land flipping, which by the way, you're right, at the base level, all those steps are necessary to be successful as a land flipper. What we did is we partnered with an operator team and they do all of the sourcing for the properties. They do all the offers and sales, and they list them for sale on terms. They handle all of the back end, all of the note servicing, all that, and they have a 30% equity share in our business. So we're 70% owners, and we just provide the capital. But that has produced, it's actually over 32,000 gross, but they get 30% of that. And so when we take that out, what is that? I think we're at 23 or 24,000 net that we get every single month. So if we were doing it, it would not be passive 100%. But we hired an operating team because we wanted to be passive. The same with our short-term rental business. We hired an operator. He ran the entire business. I have cars on Turo that are run by an operator. We've got, LP investments in some different syndications. Everything that we report on is passive.
Okay, so you're a connector. You're connecting capital with trusted, vetted operators. Just sort of like when I go out to buy an apartment complex, I raise $1 million, 100,000 at a time. Those partners really don't have to do anything. I do everything for them. They get an equity stake. I get an equity stake. But they're not signing up to go source apartment deals and do the rehab and lease them up and property management and everything else. I got you.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Because if it was us doing all that, one, it would be a train wreck because we are not good operators. And number two, it would not be passive. We could not report on that as a passive income.
Okay, I just
For
wanted to
sure.
make that distinction because people throw that term around passive income all the time, and it is true to some degree. It's more passive than working a W-2 job, but it's not no work unless you are just simply putting in cash and getting your return, which it sounds like that's kind of more like what you're presenting and offering.
Yeah. And you're wise to do that, man. Be honest. There's a lot of people that get on podcasts that are thought leaders. They can speak a good game, they can talk a lot about it, but they're not result leaders. If you really dug into what they're doing, they're either not doing it at the level that they claim, or it's not really paying off the way that they think, and they've just become good educators. We're not those guys. Like we wanted to be open the kimono, be honest about what we're doing and where we're screwing up and where we're having success. And so that's why we started doing that 5 years ago on our podcast.
Yeah, and I see the closest is the debt fund that I'm a co-GP on. I'm not the operator of that, so I'm not having to source. Okay, we're gonna make this loan. We're not. We're gonna collect these payments. All I have to do is put cash in, and I make my return. It compounds every month, or I can take the distribution if I want. And I've found myself putting more and more money towards that because it's like, hey, I mean, I don't have to operate that. That's pretty nice, like, and they're experts and
Exactly.
they're doing a good job. And the drawback to that is you're not on the inside. You don't see always all of the bad, right? I mean, my business partner, he wanted to invest in these oil wells, and I'm like, what do you know about oil wells? And he gave them $50,000 or whatever, and lo and behold, there was no oil, and they didn't make any money. And so,
Oh, that's terrible.
it's like when you don't have the inside track, you're more susceptible to the risks of that. But okay, so what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, Joey, if they want to learn more about your program and how you connect their capital to passive income opportunities?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you, we went ahead and set up a site just for your listeners. So if you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/unlock your life, then you can get access. There's a lot of free resources there, typically a webinar or quiz, something that you can then learn more about on your own time. And then reach out to us. My contact info is on there. I'd love for you to let me know that you heard me and Jennings on this show, just so I know that people are connecting with the message.
All right, so that's wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/unlock your life. I'm going to check that out. I think that's pretty cool that you made a little website. So awesome. Well, Joey, great to get to know you, man. I appreciate it. And I wish you the best of success with what you're doing.
Man, likewise. It's so awesome to be here.